Nature, pristine, as old as time, untouched, majestic, perfect. But what if the floodgates of development were opened? It would not be pretty. Save Mount Diablo is a grassroots organization dedicated to preserving our land in all its glory for generations to come.
The mission of Save Mount Diablo is to preserve and defend and restore the natural lands on and around Mount Diablo for the beauty and enjoyment that it provides for the current population as well as for future generations.
You can look at Save Mount Diablo's mission in a number of different ways. At its simplest, it's to protect one of California's most important natural areas and one of its most important landmarks. But from the early days, the organization has really had three major focuses: protecting the mountain's natural beauty, protecting the plant and animal habitat that's found there, and providing recreational opportunities to the public. One of the first questions Save Mount Diablo always gets is, save it from what? And there are lots of threats that you can talk about. They range from big developments to reservoirs and quarries and landfills, communication towers, to ranchette development. What's really dramatic about Mount Diablo is that by the time that preservation began in the Bay Area, almost all of Mount Diablo had been parceled out to homesteaders, railroads, all sorts of private entities. And everything that's been preserved had to either be purchased or fought over in some sort of development battle. So what we're really doing is reassembling a wilderness in the midst of an urban area.
I was 19 years old when I became a founding board member. The founding board members were really science-based activists. They were environmentalists, but they were geologists and botanists and bird watchers. There was a sense of spirit that was really about, it's kind of a pioneering spirit. It was a sense of exploration. So they were really about finding spots on Mount Diablo that were not protected, that were very rare, particularly with Dr. Mary Bowerman.
Mary was my inspiration, but I was the typewriter and telephone. Someone asked me how important Save Mount Diablo was to me personally, and it was very important to me personally. I sort of looked upon it as being my baby. 40 years is a lot of accomplished in this past 40 years, and it wouldn't surprise me if it were another 40 to finish the job.
When Save Mount Diablo was formed, there was just one park, 10 square miles up at the top of Mount Diablo, 6,800 acres. Since then, we've been able to expand that 6,800 acres to more than 100,000 acres in a whole variety of parks and preserves. And our real goals are to expand the area north of Altamont Pass by about another 80,000 acres to consolidate and fill in holes in that patchwork of parks and make sure that we never lose the wildlife that's found there now.
The fact that you can see Mount Diablo when you're in the Sierras. It is a very important scenic resource. And from an ecological standpoint, it probably has the greatest variety of habitat types anywhere in the East Bay.
There's more than 10% of California's native plants are found on Mount Diablo, some of them found nowhere else, and has a wide range of wildlife from jackrabbits and roadrunners up to coyotes, bobcats, and mountain lions.
I didn't realize that there was so much wildlife. I just didn't know. There were eagles, falcons, that sort of thing. When I hear about the animals that live out here, you know, I always think of national parks, what's in Yosemite or other places. I just never realized this was right in my backyard.
There are more than 7 million people within an hour's drive, and it's our backyard wilderness, our playground, to get a little respite from the impacts of living in an urban area.
Clearly the biggest problem is just continued residential development. Contra Costa County is located in an urban area. The mountain is surrounded by urban development on all sides, whether You look to the south at Dublin and Pleasanton, Livermore. You go to the east in Pittsburgh, Antioch, Oakley, Brentwood, wrapping around then into the central county area. The pressure is primarily development, residential development.
The first time that I heard about the Save Mount Diablo was when it was formed, because we were right at the foot of the mountain, 3 miles from the top of the mountain, and of course we were crucially interested in what was happening to Mount Diablo.
Dorothy Wright's family has lived in the canyon for over 100 years, and she moved there herself in 1946. We bought the property from her with life estate. It's one of the ways in which we can protect property and allow landowners to continue to live on their properties.
I sold the property to Save Mount Diablo because I thought it was important, and it was important to me as a landowner to see that the property went for a good cause.
At its core, Save Mount Diablo is a facilitator. We work with a whole host of other park agencies. Nothing we do is done alone.
Through our activity and the rest of the community, we have been able to garner the support of a variety of businesses and community groups that help us to accomplish our mission as we move forward. Everything from the building trade unions to developers to the banking industry, and a variety of other community businesses and organizations supporting our work, because they recognize that when we're successful in preserving land, we are adding to the economic vitality and the quality of life in our community.
Save Mount Diablo has been supported very wonderfully by businesses, foundations, but more importantly even by many, many individuals who understand the importance of the natural environment to the quality of life in our area.
The relationship with Save Mount Diablo and volunteer organizations is probably at its most critical juncture right now. State parks are being closed, park agencies are cutting their budgets, and the partnerships formed with nonprofits and leadership organizations like Save Mount Diablo are critical to preserving land, but also being good stewards of the property we acquire.
I was the kid who went out and hiked around the hills and brought back frogs and snakes and lizards and loved to be outdoors. And the ability to preserve that for others is very important to me. To know that there's other kids out there growing up right now that want to get outdoors and will have the opportunity is really very satisfying.
The work that we do here at Save Mount Diablo sometimes is tedious, difficult, and complicated. But when we stand back and take a look at the landscapes that we're preserving, not just for today, but for the children in the future generations, it brings great sense of joy and satisfaction that we're doing something to preserve and heal the world.